Hello viewers, welcome to Menstruology. In this video, our focus is on a unique feature of the females. Before we start on that particular topic, let us know the three different stages of a female's life. We consider the first stage to be the juvenile stage, where a female is not able to reproduce because her reproductive system is not completely formed to conceive, or it doesn't even start with a cyclic phase of reproduction. The next phase is called the reproductive phase. This begins with a monthly cycle, which is called the menstrual cycle, and the onset of it as the menarche. She is absolutely reproductive during this phase, and she can conceive a baby if fertilized. Then it comes to the last, which is called the stage of senescence. This is indeed the stage after the menopause, where the female is again not able to reproduce or conceive a baby. Our focus for today will mainly be on that reproductive phase of a female. This reproductive phase, which is just after the attainment of puberty, it is marked by the onset of menarche, or the first menstrual cycle. This usually happens at an age around 12 or 13 years. Variations are not impossible. A range of 8 to 15 years is all regarded to be very normal. And these variations depend upon the genetic constitution of the individual, her hormonal secretions, and to a certain extent maybe the conditions of the prevailing place. Now let us focus on the menstrual cycle, which is a remarkable feature of this reproductive phase. This menstrual cycle is the cyclic or orderly slouching off of the endometrial lining of the uterus, and this is in response to the interaction of several hormones in a female's body. This period has a duration. The cycle generally lasts on a mean for 28 days. Variations are again possible here. It may be as low as 21 days, where it gets repeated on a regular basis, or it could be as high as 35 days for the menstrual cycle to repeat. When it is lesser than 21 days, the condition is said to be polymenoric. While on the other hand, if the duration goes above 35 days for a repeat of the cycle, that is called oligomenoric. When we consider menstrual cycle of a duration of 28 days, then the first phase, which is called the menstrual phase, may last 3 to 5 days. During this time, the level of progesterone hormone is at its lowest, and the very low level of progesterone cannot maintain the endometrial lining of the uterus. So the endometrial lining, or more accurately, the vascularis layer, which is the functional layer of the endometrium, that is ruptured. And the rupture of these blood vessels leads to bleeding along with mucus through the vaginal tract of a female. During the same time, there is recruitment of a cohort of follicles which are the contenders for growth during that menstrual phase or the entire menstrual cycle. Those follicular cells will tend to grow, and one of them will have a tendency to ovulate. Following the menstrual phase, it comes with the follicular phase. Since the progesterone level was very low during the menstrual phase, so there is an impulse that comes through the hypothalamus to release gonadotropin releasing hormone, which stimulates the pituitary to release FSH, that is follicle stimulating hormone, and LH, that is the luteinizing hormone. The follicle stimulating hormone helps in the growth of the follicles, which helps in growth as well as maturation of the follicles. So this next phase is absolutely called the follicular phase. It lasts from day 5 to day 12 of the menstrual cycle. The recruitment of the cells were done. Now there is selection from day 5 to day 7 for those cells who will show further growth. And then by day 8, it is already selected for one such follicle to dominate over the others, who will show the most pronounced growth and will turn into the Graafian follicle. But what happens to the rest of the follicles in the cohort? They will indeed remain as the follicles ataraxia, that is, they will all be at rest, and this will be brought about by the anti-Mullerian hormone, which is produced by the granulosa cells surrounding the follicles. On day 12th, there is a burst of estrogen from the maturing follicles, and this burst of estrogen starts showing a decline of the estrogen level in the successive timing. This prompts the pituitary to come with a response of the luteinizing hormone surge. And this surge of the luteinizing hormone pushes the menstrual cycle into its next phase. This is called the ovulatory phase. So the surge of LH indeed helps the process of ovulation, and ovulation happens within 12 to 36 hours of this LH surge, where the Graafian follicle ruptures, releases the ovum, which is surrounded by some sticky cells, and that's picked up by the fimbriae, which is present in the fallopian tube and channelized into the tube of the fallopian via the ostium. Next, it comes into the luteal phase, because the follicle has already entered into the fallopian tube, and the next 3 to 4 days the cells will multiply if it is fertilized. First it will wait for getting fertilized, and if fertilization happens, naturally that fertilized egg will indeed start growing, and for the first 4 to 5 days this egg cell will multiply its number of cells and try to get implanted. That implantation, which has to happen on the lining of the uterus. So the lining of the uterus, which was getting built by the estrogen during the first 2 phases, will now be undertaken largely by the progesterone, which will be released by the remnants of that follicle, which is now called the corpus luteum. So the corpus luteum is a yellow mass which has been left out by the ovulating follicle, and this corpus luteum is the source for the progesterone secretion. This will maintain, or rather make more vigorously, the lining of the endometrium, so that the implantation can happen most successfully and the nourishment of the growing embryo can happen most importantly. But on the other hand, if the egg was not fertilized, then what should happen? In that case, the progesterone level will tend to fall after few days, and after around 7 to 8 days the corpus luteum will degenerate and turn into corpus albicans. This is rather a degenerating body, whitish in color, and this will not be able to maintain either the level of the progesterone or the lining of the endometrium. So, the luteal phase, which begins after the midday of the menstrual cycle, prolongs for another 14 days or so, and then it leads to the discharge of the endometrium, which is a repeat of the entire cycle from the menstrual phase to the luteal phase, as long as the female is in her reproductive age. When the female comes to an age which is close to 50 years, or I said it is variable from individual to individual, so it may be as early as 45 years or even a little more than 50 years. At that time, when these follicles are no more viable, or the amount of hormone which is produced in the body is not capable of helping the growth of the follicles in the ovary, then there is a stop of the menstrual cycle. This is what we call as the menopause, and that menopause is the end of the fertile duration in the life of a female. After that, we consider it to be a stage of senescence. Thank you for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe to my channel.